In college, I took a class called Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And during the Judaism portion, we had a rabbi come to class and invite us to ask us anything we wanted. Well, I was a fresh-faced, enthusiastic, know-it-all 20-year-old who'd read the Bible several times, and I was puzzled by all those laws that are there in the Old Testament, 613 of them to be exact, and they're so picky. Like that fourth commandment that we just heard from Deuteronomy. It's not just remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. No, that would be too short and simple. No, that commandment goes on for 4 whole verses. It's the longest one of the 10, telling us not only when to observe the Sabbath, but also whom the law covers, which would be everyone. Male, female, slave, free, humans, and animals. Okay, I get it. And if those 4 verses are not enough, there are others of the 613 commandments that are also about the Sabbath, like don't kindle a fire on the Sabbath, which the rabbis today interpret to mean don't turn on the lights in your house, don't start your car, because of that, observant Jewish families put their lights on timers, so on the Sabbath, the lights go on and off by themselves. And on Saturdays, elevators in Jewish-owned buildings stop at every floor on the way up and then every floor on the way down, so you don't have to push the button and turn on the light. Smart cookies, those Jews. Back to my 20-year-old self and the rabbi who invited questions. Now, I knew that Jesus came to give us grace and freedom instead of a bunch of commandments, like we heard today in that gospel lesson, as Jesus and his friends get in trouble for eating a little grain on the Sabbath and healing a guy in the synagogue. So I shot up my hand and I said, what's up with all those laws and rules and all those thou shalt nots? Where's the joy and love and freedom that God offers? Now, the rabbi must have been from southern Israel, because the look on his face screamed, bless your heart, as he answered, you Christians get it so wrong. You look at Torah, the law of Moses, and all you see are the rules that keep you from doing what you want. We Jews see each of those laws as an opportunity to encounter God. Every time we obey a commandment, we touch God, and God touches us. For instance, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. You Christians hear that, and all you can think of is what you can't do. You can't start your car, you can't turn on the lights, you can't go anywhere, you can't turn on the TV. You can't. But we see the Sabbath as a day to get away from all of that, from the anxiety and deadlines and pressures of school and work and the world. We turn off the TV to avoid the bad news. If the phone rings, we don't answer it because it's just some nudnik trying to sell me something. On your day off, you Christians go to the beach. But to do that, you got to load up the cooler, argue with the kids, pack the car, fight the traffic, find a parking place, and then when you get there, you have to schlep all your stuff, your cooler and chairs and umbrella and towels across the dunes to stake a claim big enough for your whole entourage, and then you swat mosquitoes and melt in the sun, surrounded by 6,000 other people doing the same thing, playing their music too loud and kicking sand in your face. And you call that relaxing. So instead of doing that, we stay home. We enjoy our family. We enjoy our closest friends. We relax in peace. We eat a nice meal that we prepared the day before so nobody has to sweat in the kitchen. And we end the day refreshed and renewed and ready to face the week instead of sunburnt and ragged out, needing a day off to recover from our day off. And he smiled at me and he said, that's what's up with all of those rules. And the peace we have in our hearts from obeying and pleasing a gracious God is the love and joy and freedom that God offers. Now, even as a know-it-all 20-year-old, I realized he was right. And ever since that day, I have never looked at a commandment in the Bible the same way. And I hope after today, you don't either. You see, our challenge as Christians is to adjust our attitudes and our perspective so that we recognize, like our Jewish mothers and fathers, that every guideline in the Bible is an opportunity to encounter God. And every time we observe one of God's guidelines, we get to touch God, and God touches us, which puts a whole new spin on the Old Testament. No longer is it just a book of rules telling us stuff not to do. It's a deep well of refreshing recommendations that offer us peace instead of anxiety, and confidence instead of guilt, and joy instead of shame, and prosperity instead of poverty, and victory instead of defeat, and love instead of loneliness, and life instead of death. As we read and heed the Bible, allowing it to shape us instead of our trying to shape it, and as we trust and obey the guidelines that God gives, conforming our thoughts, our words, our deeds to what the Bible says, rather than trying to make the Bible say what we wish it did, we will find, like the rabbi told me, peace that floods our heart from knowing that we have obeyed and pleased a gracious God, instead of worrying that we might have ticked him off, and a sense of God's presence in our life that brings with it joy and freedom and the knowledge that we are indeed God's beloved children. Now, with all of that in mind, let's take another look at that fourth of the 10 commandments: remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Now, to do that, we need to go all the way back to Genesis, the first book of the Bible. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, and he looked at all that he had made, and he said, "It is very good." And then he rested from his labors, thus launching the first Sabbath. Now, why would God do that? Was he all tuckered out from what he had done? No, he's God. He's all-powerful all the time. God rested not because he was worn out, but because it's wise and healthy to take a regular time off to enjoy a job well done and just to be with folks that we love and who love us. And that's exactly what God did as he looked over all that he had done and appreciated it and hung out with that first couple, Adam and Eve. And if Almighty God found it wise and healthy to take a Sabbath, maybe it's wise and healthy for us to do the same. Now, yes, we are created to work the garden and fulfill our purpose in life, but not 24 hours a day and not 7 days a week. Because we're also created to focus on loving and being loved, which takes time. Sabbath time. Now, some of us are thinking, who's got time for that? I got places to go and things to see and people to do. I can't waste my day, 1 day a week, sitting around doing nothing or reading some old book or talking to the air or waiting for some invisible God to speak. Besides, I see my family at Thanksgiving, and that's usually often enough for me. But if we don't take Sabbath time, we run smack into the law of diminishing returns. At some point, if we work too long, the more hours we work, the less we get done per hour because of fatigue. But if we stop, drop, and take some Sabbath time, if we will cease from our labors and spend some few minutes with God and let him love and refresh us, we can go back to work spiritually, mentally, and physically relaxed and renewed with fresh perspective and fresh energy. And if we don't make time to be with our family and our faith friends, it's no wonder that Thanksgiving is tense and there's friction when we get together, because it takes time. Significant time to develop and maintain healthy, encouraging, supportive, and loving relationships. Let's look at it this way. God and church are like insurance, in that sooner or later we're going to need it. Sooner or later we're going to have an accident or an injury or a crisis that only God can heal, and we're going to need some people to be with us. And the Sabbath time, those few minutes we spend every day and those couple of hours we spend every week here in worship and with our small group, That time is the premium that we pay on that insurance so that when the crisis occurs, we have the healthy relationship with God and people that will get us through that mess instead of guiltily hoping that God's not mad at us or trying to find some people who might love us enough to listen. Now, what else does it mean for us Christians to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy? Well, some traditions think it's just doing what Jews do on Saturdays. That's where the Seventh-day Adventists get the seventh day part of their name. They accept the Jewish Sabbath and follow all the Sabbath commandments in the Old Testament. Most Christian denominations, however, don't do that, and we are among those. And we don't do that based on what Jesus said and did on the Sabbath, like that story that we heard today. So you add to Jesus what the author of Hebrews tells us, that God offers us a Sabbath rest that's not tied to a particular day. And we find that for us Christians, remembering the Sabbath and keeping it holy is much richer than just sitting at home one day a week and doing nothing. First of all, Sabbath for us is not just Saturday. The early Christians, who were all Jewish, went to synagogue on Saturday, but then gathered again on Sunday to celebrate the day that Jesus rose from the dead. But over the next century, as the church attracted more and more non-Jewish Gentile believers, the Gentile Christians settled on Sunday as the day of worship instead of Saturday. But even then, they understood that being Jesus people is not a one-day-a-week deal. It's denying myself daily. It's picking up my cross daily and following Jesus not just on Saturday or Sunday, but every day. For us Jesus people, Sabbath is not a day. It's any time that we carve out from our school or work or other duties, that we lay down our to-do list, turn off the media and the distractions, let go of the worries of life for a little while, and touch in with God through reading or listening to the scriptures, through listening and talking to God in prayer. Sabbath also includes setting aside time every week to marinate in the love of God and our family at home and in our Christian family as we get together to worship God, to enjoy and encourage each other, and to offer our time and talent and treasure to love and serve God, to love and serve our neighbors, and to love and serve each other. Now, what we're doing right now is Sabbath, as we ignore the cacophony of voices out there clawing for our time, as we take this time to rest from our labor and to talk and sing and listen to the Lord and to each other. That's why it's wise to get yourself here every week, not just to obey the commandment, but to give ourselves opportunities to encounter God, to touch Him and let Him touch us, and to let our church family encourage and love us. And that's why it's wise to plug into a small group or a ministry here or out in the community to enjoy Sabbath rest as we interact with our group and to experience the joy of partnering with God and fulfilling our purpose in creation. You see, the truth is, we don't have to take a Sabbath. We get to take a Sabbath. Because as Jesus said today, the Sabbath is made for us and not us for the Sabbath. It's our chance to step out of the rat race and relax, to let go of our anxiety, to let go of our need to be in control, to let go and to rest and trust God to run the universe for a little while without us. He can do that. He can do that. To turn off the noise, to be still and know He is God, and to let Him love us. And who knows, as you carve out a little Sabbath time every day and every week, you might just get to see Jesus do what He likes doing on the Sabbath, which is touching and feeding and healing people. And as you remember the Sabbath and keep it holy, He might just do that for you.